want to start with the money question even, Kevin. You know, a lot of times people get in the deal. They start, and, you know, at least for me too. You know, I started, my big vision was $1,000 a month, man. That was my small vision when I started. But, you know, you go as far as you can see. When you get there, you can see further, especially if you're connected to leaders like Kevin Mullens, who cast the vision, build the belief, the certainty. But from a small town, and many people, they're kind of scared of money. And you know, one of my mentors, I think he was certainly a mentor of yours, he said, the best way to help the poor, the best way to help the broke is to not be one. So maybe shed some light, Kevin, on, you know, this is more than money, but money does provide choices, options, and you can do good things with money. Let's start right there today.
You know, first of all, Chris, it's an absolute honor to be here with you for the first time ever on Facebook Live. You know, everybody listening, I think I would even take it back a little bit further, because obviously those that know me know that I'm heavily involved in ministry, and so everything I do, I think, arrives from the good book. But I find that when people struggle with money, Chris, that what it really boils down to is they're being held hostage to a previous instruction. And what I mean by that is that you find people oftentimes that you know, maybe secretly when no one's looking, will admit that they would love to be, you know, cash rich or financial free, you know, have their house paid for, no debt. I think what ends up happening is that a lot of times they either attend a church, or they come from a culture, or they come from a community where, you know, this idea that maybe money's even the root of all evil. We know that's not true, Chris. The love of money is the root of all evil, but Solomon said money answers all things. So I'll just briefly share with you. You mentioned the only way to help the poor is not be poor. You know, I've always said there's a scripture that said if a man have 2 coats, he can give to a man that has no coats. And of course, the premise of that story is you got to have 2 coats.
That's it.
And so, you know, I think the desire for more, for increase, for overflow is not so we can brag about the size of our bank account. I think it's to live life without financial restraint, without financial limitations, so that if someone dear to you, you know, needs a light bill paid, or someone you know, maybe a mom hadn't been on a vacation, or things of this nature.
You mentioned service a minute ago, not to be and make this a biblical call, but Scripture does say whoever wants to be great among us must be your servant. And we're all about service before self here, people before profits. And you've said this many times, you can't ask your team to go bleed if you're not willing to hemorrhage for them. And maybe touch on the power of service, the power of leading by example.
I honestly don't think there's any other way to truly be significant in life. You know, you could be successful, maybe not be significant, but you cannot be significant and also not be successful. And I think that significance is directly tied to servant leadership. You know, when we talk about servant leadership, I think the word servant sort of gets lost in translation. Yet, when you talk about the most powerful pastors, when you talk about people that are already billionaires, when you talk about people, I think it was even John D. Rockefeller that said, I became a billionaire because I helped 1 million people become millionaires. You know, or 1,000 people become millionaires. My math is bad. But the reason I suggest that is because I think what helped us win big early in life is that, and part of it might have been upbringing, I think the other part was, I just don't react well to leadership that asks you to do something that you don't see them doing. And I know that we're all in different chapters. I mean, Chris, you may be on chapter 20, and a guy that's on chapter 1 might not necessarily have the ability to get you in their living room every night. But it's important for them to understand that you started in a living room every night. And so I think one of the things I love about this is that when we talk about serving, when we start talking about bleeding for others, I think what it does is it brings out a source of authenticity. I think it makes the heart vulnerable so that you're believable to the people that you're leading, because no one will follow you if they don't trust you.
That's it. So let's talk now about the power of association. You know, I've said this many times. You know, if you're thinking and stinking, your team will be shrinking. And one of the things about thinking is associating with people who are ambitious, driven, positive. They're people who have a foresight of what's to come. And Kevin in his own right is powerful, but here's what I love about Kevin. He just was sharing on the front end before I knew it was recorded about spending time with Emmitt Smith. All these high caliber, high quality people, as many of you or some of you don't know, being the executive producer of Canal Street, multiple movies, but that's less about the monetary piece even and more about the impact of taking a message across to the mass.
I don't show up at a church or a conference because I need to speak. I show up because I want to be in the room with people that are movers and shakers, people that are difference makers, agents of transformation and change. I'm going to drop a few little sayings. You dropped the one about stinking thinking, and I think it's mandatory that you let some of this stuff sink in. For instance, I'll often say stuff like, you can't have prosperity conversations with people that have a Section 8 mentality. I often say stuff like, if you're an eagle, you can't have an Eagles conversation with people that have a Buzzards mentality. Or I'll often say stuff like, the company that you keep determines what accompanies you.
Wow.
And when you understand the value of association, you'll understand why people like billionaire Robert Kiyosaki is constantly talking about building your network. And I've had people say to me, well, Kevin, how do I change my network? How do I change my source of influence? And here's what I realized. I thought to myself, Robert Kiyosaki, how can I change the caliber of people that I associate with? Part of it is atmosphere.
There you go.
If you're looking to find a lion down at the petting zoo, it ain't going to happen. If he is there, he's lost his identity.
That's it.
You ain't going to find a thoroughbred racehorse down at a Shetland pony farm. You ain't going to catch a shark in a sinkhole. We got sinkholes, Riley. You ain't going to catch a shark in a sinkhole in someone's backyard. So part of it is atmosphere. You got to change and navigate where it is that you're hanging out in order to meet a better caliber of people. And here's what Robert Kiyosaki said: when you change what you know, the people that you know change.
Wow.
When you change what you know, meaning that, Chris, if I hang around you enough, and I've been around you, I'll never forget the first meeting almost 5 years ago in Lexington, Kentucky. There was something different about your language, something different about the way you spoke. There was something about how you communicated, and it created an appetite in me to want to be more successful, to want to be more significant. When you change what you know, the people you change know, because you and I both know you don't attract what you want in life, you attract what you are. And when you start talking about speed, that probably is the majority of anything that I speak on a consistent basis. As a matter of fact, for anybody that's successful in business, is that speed is the new currency of business. It just is.
Wow.
The other thing that I think speed does, Chris, is it also reduces the amount of distractions we have in life. If you've ever drove fast in a car or on a motorcycle or something, the faster you get, the least distracted you are as a person. So I find that a lot of times people that set goals, either set goals so small, it doesn't require any change out of them. Therefore, when the goal's not met, there's no letdown.
There you go.
When you set a goal that is much bigger, it requires a lot more of you. It requires better growth, better books, better people. And ultimately, it requires a higher form of tempo and rhythm in which you work by. I find that for me, distractions are abundant. One of the things that that I speak on a consistent basis is making sure that you understand, to some degree, really all distractions are equal. And distraction is the enemy of prosperity. That's how the enemy seeks to get you off somewhere in left field like a little leaguer picking daisies at a baseball game because you're uninterested in what's going on. I find that's the greatest tactic that the enemy has, is how can I get Chris chasing rabbits instead of paying attention to the important things in life. And here's what I find. People that move slow are so completely out of the know on what's going on in their industry that the business is passing them by like a rocket ship, and they're sitting by, and all of a sudden when things start falling apart, there's where your complaining comes, there's where you're whining, and your people that are constantly living in the mully grubs. But when you're moving at a high speed, what happens is that the distance between failures shrinks.
That's it.
I hope you pay attention to this. The distance between your ups and downs become much less significant, because I'm like this instead of going like this and then like this. I'm like this because I'm moving at such a high speed that my distractions are less, my disappointments are less, And then the greatest thing is that anybody that even understands just the law of momentum realizes that momentum cannot be created by going 1 or 2 miles an hour. And so I would suggest to everybody on the call today, just ask yourself, what is the tempo of my organization? And man, I hope you forgive me by saying this, because sometimes this ruffles people's feathers a little bit. But there's times in life you have to get just a little bit unbalanced. Not for very long, because you can pay a great price for that. But there are times in life, a soldier does it when he has to go serve 4 or 5 or 6 months away from his family. An Olympic athlete oftentimes has to skip maybe, Christmas or something. I'm just simply suggesting that if you want something big in life, you got to be willing to pay a price, do whatever it takes, get a little bit unbalanced, meaning put some things on hold, increase the level of your tempo, create the type of revenue, Chris, to do some of the other things that you're passionate about in life. For you on the call today, you may go, I don't want to make movies. Well, I didn't either. I didn't know that was in me. But every time that I ever got a benchmark check, something with a comma in it, let me share with you something. When you start making an extra $2,000 or $3,000 a week, not a month, but a week, an extra $10,000, $12,000, $13,000, $15,000 a month, here's what happens. Options all of a sudden appear out of nowhere. Yep. The amount of revenue to maybe build a shelter, to maybe support mission work, maybe to retire your mom and dad, or to ultimately go do something you never thought was financially in your wheelhouse. For me, I started becoming very passionate about telling the positive messages through entertainment, whether it be music, whether it be movies.